I've been doing energy grid consultations for about 20 years. My first teacher, Jim, who I wrote about in What If You Could Skip the Cancer and Tantric Intimacy, he's the one who taught them to me. He used them with all of his clients. It really helped understand our actual wiring, sort of who we were before the world got at us, or who we were before we were influenced by our parents or society or the experiences we've had. It's a really incredible tool that uses our birth date and it charts the planets and Chiron, but it really has nothing to do with an astrology reading. It's a very different system that was developed by an interesting man many decades ago, intuitively, psychically, and I find it so incredibly useful to understand who we are, how we relate to others, especially in intimate relationships, but mostly to really know that we really don't have to be everything, that we're all so, so different. And I'll show you why. This is an energy grid. And it looks at the chakras. It looks at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the chakras. It looks at our yin-yang balance. It looks at the 7-year increments of our life and how they work and the challenging times and the easy times and all that. But there's only 8 planets that are charted plus Chiron, because obviously it's from Earth's perspective. So, but there's 30 spots. And this is one of the most interesting things and one of the biggest revelations for me when I first had my own chart read many decades ago, and then doing them for other people, because it really allowed us to be unique. It allowed us to focus on our gifts and our struggles and really understand why there's certain areas that seem to be difficult or seem to be empty where other people they find so easy. And as soon as I really studied these grids and I really did them for other people, I realized, wow, of course I'm different than you. There's 30 places for things to be charted, but only 9 things are charted. And look how incredibly different we are. And it's always interesting when, a couple comes and we put their charts up together and they're practically opposite, that they actually share nothing. And this is really important because this grid shows us how we see the world. It really shows us, it's almost like this is the filter that I'm seeing the world through. Well, if we are with someone who sees the world incredibly differently, it can be really challenging if we want us to pretend we're the same. But in a world where we love having people in our lives who see things differently, it becomes a blessing. We get to look at each other and go, really? That's how you see it? Tell me more, because I can't see it that way. And together we get to see a bigger picture. It's so fascinating. Some of the things that are huge takeaways from these grids is really understanding our thoughts. Because sometimes our thinking takes us into rabbit holes, but we want to trust our thinking. So what do we do if, according to the grids, and really once we hear this, we go, oh, that's my whole life. I know that. Wow. Then we simply know how to act differently. Some people are gifted at speaking, and what they say is what they mean. Other people, let's say if you have no planets in this chakra, you spend your whole life saying, this is what I said, but it's not what I mean. I wish people understood. And it's a real struggle. Or having a really strong sense of self or a sense of groundedness and all these things, even illness, that for some people, if you get sick, you just have to change your diet or eat or walk differently or do different exercises or have a new yoga practice. Other people, it's shifting their mind that changes their health completely. Some people I've noticed, all of their planets are in the lower chakras. So they're very, very, very grounded. They build things effortlessly with their hands. They're very evidence-based in the world. Whereas other people who are heavily wired in the upper chakras are very much ethereal-based and very much wanting to see the bigger picture in a way that people who are heavily wired in the lower chakras really don't understand. You know, I have a really good friend who sees the world very differently than I do. And once I learned how to do these grids and I looked at our grids side by side, I went, oh, that's why she loves being in the woods. She is literally a wood nymph. She is one with nature because she's so grounded in the earth. Whereas my grid is extremely in the upper chakras to the point that I forget I have a body and I'm kind of afraid to be in the woods, you know. And yet we've been friends for decades and decades. But we've known for a long time that we see the world incredibly differently. But it's a blessing. So these are some of the things I love about doing the grids with people, because one, we really learn to understand our uniqueness and how wonderful it is, and we stop beating ourselves up for the things that we wish were different, or things when we look at someone else, I wish I was more like them. But instead we really get to embrace this incarnation, who we are right now. And then, for example, as a couple, so I've often done this for couples where we put your grids together and we really understand how we're different, and we really learn how to communicate in ways that are loving and kind and really appreciative of each other. So that's where we'll often do that as a couple, which is really interesting. Sometimes I'll do grids for your parents. If, for example, if the grid shows that you're heavily wired into one of your parents, then sometimes we might do your mom or your dad's grid as well. Not always, not even very often, but sometimes I will. And that's often very insightful to know what is yours and what is actually coming down from your parents. And sometimes when we can sort that out, it's easier to see ourselves. So if you would like to have an energy grid reading, please sign up. I would love to get to know you. The grids themselves work best when there's a question. If there's something in your life that's really a struggle right now. Grids are very, very similar to tarot cards or astrology grids or anything like that, where it's not really a parlor trick. Like you can kind of look at it and go, well, when you were 7, this happened and you really struggle with this. Like, it's not that it can't be done sort of blank slate like that, but it's not the most interesting way. In most ways, it is really an opportunity. It's a way of linking us together. So intuitively, we can actually look at what's your struggle right now? What are the questions you have? And this is a beautiful bridge between us, right? It's a way of actually communicating and having a very dynamic experience together and an intuitive experience together to really find the answers that you're looking for.